Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing property ownership in the context of Thai immigration. I occasionally get this question and folks will say, well, what if I own a condo or what if I own property in Thailand? Doesn't that entitle me to a visa? Now, there was a time before the sort of great tightening some years back of Thai immigration where there was a kind of fixed O visa, if you will, associated with Thai property. Now, the first thing to understand is that all O visas are issued on a regulatorily driven framework. O visas are not created per the specific sections of Thai law set forth in the Thai Immigration Act of 1979. They're not in there. There's a miscellaneous sort of catch-all category which stipulates that Thai immigration via ministerial regulations can create other visa categories, and under the auspices of that specific section, O visas can be issued. And there has to be a regulatory framework, but understand first off, they're not specifically mentioned at law, and this makes a big difference because they're much more subject to fluidity when it comes to policy set within the immigration apparatus. The Thai business visa, for example, in contrast to an O visa, a B visa is specifically set forth in the provisions of the Immigration Act. There is a specific section which states visas can be and should be issued for business purposes. There isn't specific language regarding O visas. Now, some time ago, it was rather routine practice for Thai immigration to issue O visas specifically to those who own property in Thailand. And in fact, we dealt with some of those kind of legacy visas associated with Thai property owners that kind of moved forward into the present era. And in most cases, Thai immigration continued issuing those visas under the conditions under which the visa was initially promulgated, for lack of a better term. But the issue with that was if you let your status break, you could end up in a situation where they said, yeah, we're not going to issue a new one. We will continue renewing under old terms, but we're not going to issue new ones. So this has been in kind of a gray area, this issue of visas associated with property. I think for the time being, it's not prudent to presume this. There certainly is not an O visa category currently being allowed into Thailand under the COVID outbreak, under the COVID restrictions, specifically for property owners. That's just not currently in the returnee framework, if you will. I think personally, sort of on a personal level, in the aftermath of all this, I think it might be a good idea for Thai immigration to go ahead and take another look at that policy and perhaps bring it back in order to maybe spur some interest in the Thai property market and get some expats back into the country. That stated, again, that's not a foregone conclusion. And for the time being, there is not a specific category out there for O visas issued specifically to those who own Thai property.